We also have a panel area, and we have our deans up here. Plus, I asked Liz to be here because when it comes to course construction, students destroy, okay, but course construction, I wanted her, as we get on any topics, for you to be able to clearly hear her. But we've already heard from our provost, our dean of the College of Business, Teresa Gillespie, and then our dean of the College of Ministry, Wade Goodall, and our dean of Arts and Sciences, Daryl Hobson. Daryl, how many years have you been at Northwest? 43. I'm not able to say that. So Daryl has tendered he's got other things to do, something about kids and stuff like that. So anyway, so we have our panel. I wanted to start off with talking just a bit because, as already mentioned, plagiarism, that is an area that all non-traditional programs, all programs have something that's struggling with the internet and the ability to cut and paste. Well, students think that it's a great ability to cut and paste, and we're all struggling with. So I just want to bring you up to date on that. You should have a handout, and Bev is floating around. If you have not received this handout, two things I want to tell you. Number one, these will give you instructions as faculty on what to do. What is the process if you feel that somebody has plagiarized? On one side, on the back of this are the actual quote from the catalog, and on the graphic side is what you do. I want to say on behalf of CAPS that the fact that the provost wants to be part of the educational process when it comes to students plagiarizing and academic honesty speaks loads to you as faculty and from the commitment of the institution to getting into students' lives and helping them master how to work with education. It just speaks so loudly that he is willing on step 2 on here to be a part of the solution, a part of helping students with this, which is just a phenomenal statement, Joe. Thank you so much for this commitment that you have as provost to stamping out academic dishonesty. So, and then the second thing is our Turnitin software, thanks to the psychology department and helping to test this. Starting in May, our courses will have the anti-plagiarism software called Turnitin that is available in all of the courses. It has been a long trial, and back we talked to the CEO of our learning management system, Significant Systems. He said he's almost pulled his hair out getting to this point to where we will have the anti-plagiarism software available in the courses. So you will get, if you're teaching in May, you will get a lot more instructions on how to work this within your course. I just wanted to touch on this so that we don't spend a lot of other discussions on this. So that's sort of up to date on here. I want to kick off, this is a workshop, which means, a workshop means you better have a paper and pencil and take notes. Ground rules for the day. We want to find out what's working in your area, what's not working in your area, because somebody else may have the answer to that. Keep your answers short, sweet, direct. You don't have to explain everything you're doing, but enough to where you say, okay, I want to talk to Frank Klappich after this because whatever he mentioned in here sounds like a really good idea. And Frank has already been instructing us on 3 or 4 things that he does. And I want to hear about that 10-word and all of that somewhere this morning. So that's how we're doing it. We have the deans up here that you can ask any questions. I'm going to start off. Provost, talk to us a little bit about the institutional stand and sort of your idea on fake integration. Talk a little bit to us about that.
Well, can I say one word about plagiarism?
Absolutely.
The reason we developed this, just so you know, is not because we want to be hardcore or give people, but really because plagiarism in the academy is really a big deal, and it will come back to haunt you if you don't learn how to cite properly and how to read properly. As you're working with students, so please do report it. It doesn't do them a favor if it doesn't get reported, and then later on down the line we find out it's the 4th or 5th incident, like, oh no. I want you to know we're not trying to be mean about it. Most plagiarism is a result of one of two things: either bad time management, and then all of a sudden at the very last minute they're trying to pull together an assignment, or academic insecurity. People don't feel good about their ability to write an answer, and then they see something on the web that, oh wait, they just said exactly what I want to say. And so it's really trying to get you, it's trying to figure out what's the problem, and so if it's time management, it's like, hey, you just got to give yourself time to do this, and how can we help you learn to do that? If it's academic insecurity, I have a big spiel that I give about, look, it's way, way better to do it yourself, grind through it, feel insecure, feel miserable, and get a lower grade than you might have wished. It's way better to do that than to get an F because you plagiarized, you know? And it's a learning process, and the only way you're going to build those muscles is if you actually force yourself to do it. Force yourself to do bad work so you can learn how to do good work. And if they ever do get to the point of meeting with me, the point of that is it really reinforces the seriousness of this. Hey, it's got to stop. You're just going to have to do your own work, or there's going to be serious repercussions. So it's really important that we all work together on the process. And I try to get involved to try to be the ultimate scary person. And I don't do it. I'm really nice to them. But I try to just really reinforce this is serious and will have bad consequences if I don't just force myself to do this myself properly. Anyway, that's my 3-minute spiel.
A little bit about faith integration and Northwest stance on this, because the CAPS program says that faith statement is not required of the student, and yet how does that affect us maybe with faith integration?
Well, there's two sides to that. Interestingly enough, you know, most colleges, and Northwest went through the same process, when we were starting to delve into online education, most people were really nervous about it and negative towards it. Well, how can students learn if they're not in the room with me? You know, and there really is that feeling. Well, what is it that they can't learn? Well, it's almost as if education was like the flu and you catch it. If they're not exposed to me, they won't learn this stuff. And it really is true that online courses, curricular-based courses, have to teach material differently than you might in a live setting. But the idea that you can't learn it, or that we can't teach these things in this other venue. But I'm telling you, 10, 15 years ago, almost all college professors would have said it can't be done. This has been an amazing 10 or 15-year ride. About 10 years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, I read a study that said, where they asked college professors across the board, can an online course be as effective as an on-ground course? And 80% said no. But if you broke out those who had actually taught an online course, then 80% said yes. And so really the way that things have changed is we now have so many faculty members at our school and at other schools who actually have experience in online and have done it, and they've learned, oh yeah, it is possible. It's just different. And but in the conversations that were occurring over those early years, one of the big questions was about faith integration. Well, how could and then when we took the idea of online programs to our board, they were very concerned about faith integration, and the mentality then, again, was you get faith integration from being in the room with a person, but one of the things that we promised the board and we talked to faculty about is that we said, and one of the glories of a curricular-based program is that you can know for sure. Somebody like Liz or anybody reading the course curriculum can know. It's really cool.
Good.
Did I answer?
Absolutely. One of the strengths of this program, especially you that are CPT instructors or adult evening, please begin every class with prayer. You do not know how many responses we get back from students on how impactful that is. And whether it's statistics or whether it's a ministry, whatever it is, prayer requests, starting a class with prayer. It doesn't have to be a devotion, but that thing just sets the stage for very naturally bringing in God and your faith within the discipline into that course somewhere. So I encourage you to let that be a standard. And again, we have so many students say that is what separates my education at Northwest from UW or Cascadia or anywhere else, is that faith is a part of what we're doing. Okay. What questions do you have from the deans? We have arts and sciences, which is sometimes we call it's a college of everything else, and certainly the College of Ministry and business, and from the provost, and as well as Liz for online. We've got some general stuff we can talk about, but need to hear what questions you might have, or deans, you may have questions for your faculty, for the faculty in here, about how things are going or what's going on. So let's not take any more time to be talking. What question do you have? Yes, sir.
So I'll start. This is more of a comment. I've been teaching in CAPS, traditional, and online.
You wear all three hats.
That's right.
We get everything we can out of you.
But from what I see, the level of writing is really good. And then in addition to bad writing, the School of Business says we're going to use APA. Half of them haven't a clue what APA is. How can we help prepare students better by the time they make the 300 and 400 level classes? Does anybody else have that experience?
Yes.
Yeah, great gig. Thanks for asking a softball question. That's right. For a question that doesn't affect anybody else. Dean, talk to us a
Speak
bit.
as Dean of Arts and Sciences. Students who go through Northwest curriculum should have taken Foundations of Writing, Expository Writing 1, which introduces them to MLA writing, and Research Writing 2, which introduces them to APA writing. Now, we can't verify that everybody that's in your 3,000 level program has gone through those processes. They may have transferred them in, they may have done them before. So there are several things. First of all, their writing is abysmal. There is a writing center available that they can go to and make contact with or evaluate or help with that. There are online resources that can help them with the APA style, so we recommend OWL if they do. It has probably as fine an array of writing topic issues. So for example, a student doesn't know a comma from a semicolon or a colon and can't string together subject-verb-object sentences. They're going to have to go out and get some help. Quite frankly, somewhere along in their education they just have bypassed that, or they don't think it's important. So maybe one way to do it is to come back and say, this is really important. It appears you're not paying attention to your writing, and this component of your grade is affected based on the quality of your writing. I don't know any other way to do it at that point, and my writing faculty is here, Lene and Michael. Jeremy works in that area as well, so I will let them chime in.
Gerald, tell what OWL is.
Oh, OWL is Purdue's Online Writing Lab. If you've not gone to the site, it is one of the best sites out there. They have really significant funding for it, so it's always current. So if MLA changes something in their style manual or APA changes something in their style manual, OWL is always current. And so I really recommend it as a resource. So a student is really struggling with this, suggest, okay, here's a place where you might go, and perhaps find some help on how to do this. You're seeing these errors consistently. Try to do that. Writing is a thing that a lot of people are very insecure about, primarily because students tend to write stream of consciousness. And sometimes we wonder if they're, and you're right, texting and all of that has contributed significantly to,
Well, and lack of reading.
yeah, a lot of
People
people
don't read, and
well.
reading is one of the ways you learn to write. So to make sure that we have students reading, to not shy away from good reading. A couple years ago, we started, and you may have noticed this switch to having what are called WP courses, writing practice courses. And the assumption is that every course in the university requires 21 pages of writing, unless there's this real specific reason why that course shouldn't have that. And for a course to be excused from the 21 pages of writing requirement, there needs to be, it has to go to the Academic Affairs Committee. So like math courses, we say, okay, you have to do 21 pages of writing. But the writing can be done in different ways. It doesn't all have to be graded writing. It doesn't all have to be formal. But 25%, but a certain amount does have to be formal writing, and 25% of the grade has to be based on writing. And so to really reinforce that and see the value of that, I mean, we're really working so that students will come out of Northwest having had a lot of practice at writing to try to get better at it.
This gentleman just-
Yeah, I have a question that kind of relates to what you were saying, because what I'm finding is that with the writing, that we have a lot of students online have a language barrier. And in the past, I've had a lot of people that perform, a lot of people that have different ones. Now, the content may be there, but the writing is the way that they talk and it's broken up. And I've had them call me and say, hey, look, they explain to me that it's hard for them because of their speech. And of course, that shows in their writing. What I'd like to know is how much grace do we allow them in the grading process? The content's there, but like you're saying, the writing is really off. And a lot of
Let me
that's due to the language.
respond to your question, and I'm going to defer to the expert in the room. Dr. Autumn Witt over here is the expert in ELL writing area. So Autumn, answer his question specifically, because we know that we tend to think of English as monolithic. And there are, in fact, many world Englishes. And there are some areas you can correct, some you can't. Autumn, tell me a little bit about that.
I'd probably say that there's 3 stages that you would want to look at. One would be going back to world Englishes and think about where they're going to use their degree. If they're in an ASL setting and they're going to use their degree in a place where English isn't going to be the medium, then content is what matters. If English isn't going to be the way they're going to use your content, then don't beat yourself up about making that be the thing, that you really focus a lot on. Content's important. The next thing would be needing explicit process writing. So maybe you require outlines, like detailed outlines, because they still need to get that, how do you write a paper in the rhetorical expectations that we have for written academic English. So really requiring outlines to make sure they thought through thesis with writing signposts, topic sentences, evidence analysis, like you walk them through that and require an outline. Then when it comes to actual nitty-gritty, what errors should you be correcting? In general, I think that students see what you value by how much the grade is based on it. So I think that in general, no more, my rule of thumb personally is that grammar errors should be 10% of the grade. If more than that is, if the paper is so atrocious that you can't understand more, well then there's going to be comprehension issues. So you can grade down in other areas, but you shouldn't overemphasize to the point that students only think that articles, that having a or the is the most important thing to. Like they should still see. But when you're actually choosing what to grade, pick a couple that you see as the thing and say, I'm only going to comment on 2 or 3 this time because it's manageable. And also, like what you give feedback on, if you're not going to have them resubmit, they're not going to look at comments. I've done extensive research, and the only time that students read teacher feedback is when you make them do something with it. So if you're going to spend the time pointing out errors, you have to require them to do some work of changing it, or it hasn't been worth your time.
Another point is, after you write this long, exhaustive comment on correction, is say, email me that you received this. Give them a couple of days. If they not come back, because this drives you crazy, and that's what why I'm crazy, is that I spend a lot of time on individual students and they make the same mistake week after week. And all of a sudden I realize, they may not be reading my wisdom that I'm giving them. Force them to respond, and then if you don't get it in a couple of, obviously it's a little extra work, but just say, okay, George, you didn't respond. Did you even read this time that I put into your assignment? Also, we are working with the Department of English. You guys are sort of talking internally on what to do. So this is something we're looking at, revising the English courses. And one of the neat things I've heard is forcing them to go into the online writing tutorial as part of the English course. Because every student that's done it has come back and said, this is a great resource. Where have you been all my life? And of course, Liz is saying the link is right there. But unfortunately, the people who need it the most are the ones who usually do the least work to find it. So we're looking at structuring our English courses a little better. Dick, we talked around a lot of this stuff. Frank, you had a great little thing that you do. Explain it briefly, what you do in your courses.
Well, I think a couple things come to mind as you're talking about this. One is that I think the people that write poorly, students are embarrassed about it. And one of the things that I always try to do is to try to find something positive to say about them. And a lot of times you can compliment content, or if you have them in class, compliment their verbal skills and or thinking skills. And I like to tell them, look, your verbal skills are good. If this would have been a presentation and not writing, it would be a much different grade. Now, the problem is that in writing, you don't have all of the extra tools that you have when you're speaking. There's no gesture, there's no tone of voice, there's no eye contact. All that's taken away. It has to be replaced by word order, by interesting vocabulary, by grammar, and so on. And then encouraging them that way.
What do you do about long sentences?
Well, and when I do, some of the feedback I give is I have what I call the Clavish 15-word rule. And I'll write back to students and I'll say, shorten your sentence. Most people, when they write more than 15 words in a sentence, begin to lose control of content and grammar. And I'll tell them, that next time you hand a paper, I'm going to be looking to see how many sentences are
Yes.
all 15 words. And then my other rule that I have is that if you see a sentence with who, what, when, where, why, how, or being in mid-sentence, it probably needs a rewrite.
So this way, you don't have to have a student rewrite what they've already submitted because the course is going on, but you're saying, here's your ground rules for your next writing assignment. Excellent, thanks, Frank.
I try to give sort of quirky rules. I mean, hopefully that.
Mr. Quirky, that's you. I worked with Frank quite a few years ago when he was the traveling professor out of his trunk down in Tacoma at Life Center. He would open his trunk and here's all his stuff. So he was the traveling professor for Lee. Yes?
So I have the same problem in the graduate program with writing as well, and I teach online, so everything they turn in is writing. When I attended the MBA program, I did it in person, and almost all the assignments were group projects in person. Is there the ability with the online tool, or can it be added so that there's more of a divide? And you made a great point about they do better in person. Is there a way, I know you can record Skype meetings, GoToMeeting. Is there a way we could have them start recording, building their own presentations and verbally speaking them and do a recording and submit those as an assignment so that they kind of get a little bit of a balance to, because business presentation is a big deal in business.
Okay, first of all, a lot of the business courses do require presentations, so maybe the one you've been teaching, Bill.
Yep.
And make that suggestion in that course diary. People that teach online understand what I'm talking about
Yep.
right now. You can do chats, you can do Skype, you can request all those different things. Maybe the course that you're working with was one of the earlier ones that was developed and perhaps it needs some changes made to it. So that's definitely a possibility.
Can the software do it though? The online software, can they actually do a recording where they share their computer screen to submit it as an assignment?
No, but there's a zillion of them out there.
Okay.
There's
There's a lot of free software.
Lots of free ones.
And and you upload a file
Yep.
as part of the submission. If
Okay.
that file is both visual and audio, it would be right there.
There's also a write-up on how to create a small YouTube, and I know it's in a bunch of the online courses. So that, and it can only be shared with somebody who gets that link, so that I have instructions on how to tighten that up and stuff. So we should really make some suggestions for that course in
Okay.
that case. Okay?
And these are great suggestions if you're teaching a course, say, hey, this would be a great addition to it. So it's very easily, and that falls under Liz, we work with the respective dean to be sure that it's going the right direction. But these are tweaks that you can do better than we do because you're teaching the course.
There's that
Excellent.
news section. I'm sorry that I'm only speaking to online here, but there's that news section where Frank could put those comments in that first week. I send you guys emails and say, don't forget to tell your students some of your ground rules. That's the type of thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's like a zillion resources out in the library, and they have that online tutor that anybody can use, and maybe you guys just need to refer them to it a little bit more.
Yep.
At the end of the program, it's interesting that the online MBA graduates scored higher on the standardized testing than the on-ground MBA students did. So maybe all that writing they had to do was good for them in the long run.
Chuck?
I love all the resources for the individual and how we can work with the individual. Where I find some of the problems is the institutional side of things, where we require a prerequisite to be in a 300 level courses. The 300 level courses, I've always set a prerequisite for those courses. And yet I have many students who have never come near any of those English courses or anything before they're in that 300 level course. At what point do we really require the prerequisites to stand? Because the students they get right around them. I have freshmen in 300
Somebody
level
else can
classes.
answer that.
Prerequisites,
From our perspective, they should be.
So
They're in there. I have
Okay.
freshmen in a 300 level
Let
class.
us know,
Yeah.
because if somebody made it through, it sounds like quite a few people made it through.
They
which
do all
is,
the time.
You know, that's a cardinal sin. So,
I didn't know
let me
that.
know if our system isn't working, we will get our system working. Because prerequisites are prerequisites. So we need to know, and we can track down any student very easily, whether it's Bev adult evening, Liz for online, Carrie with CPP, we'll find out where our system is not working.
But when I went to log in, I couldn't log in. And so I don't know if it was just because I was new, or what I wanted to do was go in and see how they could do that, because I was gonna require them, but what I asked the students to do was, I want you to submit your paper, the original one, and I want you to, after you've worked with the tutor, come back to me with both, so that I could see your growth and change. But I couldn't go in and verify that you could actually do that. And so I was concerned that, do we have access to it, to be able to go in and poke around ourselves?
I have to look that up. I would think you should, because it's just your account,
Okay.
your regular old email account. I'm not sure, Larry, but I will find out.
Yeah, because I think that's a good
I will
good
find out
way,
and get
so like
back
I
to you.
deferred his, submission, but I said, when you do submit, this is what you need to come back to me with.
The English department has also provided some information on how to work with the Writing Center and what a Writing Center can and cannot do for you. And Lene, where is that posted? Is that on the department website? So that can be helpful to students if they would be included in their courses on how to work with an online writing. There's two different issues. There's a online writing which provides help and support for students' construction of their papers and thinking through the process. Some students just need an editor. They need some, especially like in graduate papers and such, they need an editor that can actually go through the process and help them edit the paper. The Writing Center doesn't do that. That's not the role of a Writing Center. The Writing Center is to help the process, formation, thinking about content, and trying to help them shape it. They're not going to sit and edit the paper with the student. They don't have time to do that in the Writing Center.
Yeah, it was content
Yeah.
in
So if it's a content issue and process issue, Writing Center is a place they should go. If it's, you just don't have a clue on how to make this paper read in good academic English, then they probably need an editor, and I'm sure the English department can supply them with advanced students who can actually do the editing and help them through that process. Sometimes just having one editing session with somebody can provide the ability to see where their errors are and help them work that out. So
All of our students have access to the online writing center. That is a link into the courses, and they have a special department, work with English as a second language students. So we have the products. We're going to design the English courses where students know as they go through that this is a resource. Jeremy?
So this is a question about clarifying writing expectations up front. What if the, because people have talked about that, like the 15-word sentence or whatever. What if the expectations that I have as a professor, I didn't design the course, I did someone else's course. The rubrics that are used there have very clear expectations. I set my expectations. They're not in the rubric. Students complain then when I hold them to my set of expectations because they're not rubric, and I can't change the rubrics because I didn't create the course. How does that tension get resolved?
Tell us, well, if we have a rubric that's not working, we need to change it to get it working. That is not a major hassle. Most of the time, deans, when you review courses, you don't really look at the rubric. That's sort of on our part of it, our responsibility. But, well, you know, we create a course, we teach it, and then we realize what we didn't do right in creating it. So we need that input from you right to this.
part of the review process right now of 1000, 101, and 102 is looking specifically at the rubrics and their applicability to the assignments. You're right, because you're right, some of the rubrics were general rubrics that were already there provided, and they were not tweaked to the specifics of the assignment, and they need to be tweaked to the specifics of the assignment. So hopefully when we're done with this, those rubrics will be effective.
If you're talking online, the developer is the one who can change the rubrics any way that they want, and then we review them. A lot of people use the defaults, but you don't have to, and there's always a grammar component in there, at least suggested in the default, so.
We want to go on to other topics. This is an important topic, but let's be sure if there's anything else directly on this that can help. Mary?
So it kind of tags along with what he was saying. As in the online courses, if I have another educator teaching this course, during that 2-week time period that you open it to them before they go in to actually teach the course, is there an opportunity during that point where they can go through the constructs of the course and say, you know what, my standard is this, I really prefer the rubric to be as such, and use that time for adjustments?
They do, right now, when the course gets open 2 weeks beforehand, there's that any changes that you would like to indoctrinate, send them to myself and somebody else, and it's gonna be Ashley also, yes. So they get to go in there and review. Are the links working? Does this make sense? Do I understand how this goes? And if it was a drastic change, if it was too big of a change, I would have to go back to a program director or a dean or something. But usually most of those changes are quite minor. So yes, there is an opportunity.
Her question, I think, is apropos, is 2 weeks sufficient time? And I think most of the profs would probably say it's not, to be able to fully review, the course and feel comfortable with the process. So we might want to think about opening up to the professor, giving them more time to do the review and feel like they're prepared for what's coming up.
Usually the prof who teaches it was the developer, 80, maybe 85% of the time. So that course has gone through not just the development, but also the first teaching, at least the first teaching. So that's where, as Liz said, most of the time these are tweaks or links that are not working. If a course needs revision, we need to hear from you, giving us feedback, and then we decide whether it's a minor revision that can be tweaked, whether it's something that is a major revision. We have categories for that, but if something is not working, we need to know about it on that. So anything else on this topic? Frank?
Just a quick one on the tutoring. I'd like to say for those of you that are new that at least the writing lab, the tutoring, is effective if they'll use it. I've had a very good experience with students that actually use the tutor and stay with it, you know, like throughout the semester. And next semester their writing is dramatically improved. So it really is a good resource.
Autumn?
My question was just, I taught the same class back to back, and so I didn't review it in that 2 weeks, because I thought it was the same class, but changes were made, so I don't know what the system is. Like, it wasn't as, so there were changes that I didn't even know I needed to check, so I didn't know what the general process is when a class ends, if there's a, I don't know, reset, or what it was at some
Are you
point.
talking an online course?
An online, graduate class.
Because there's that course diary. Was the course diary there when, because it's only been there about a year.
Sounds like something, talk to Liz specifically, because that should not happen. That's very unusual.
No.
Yes, sir.
For the online students, I did a lot of the tips here with, suggesting the writing center, sending them to OWL and Purdue and all that. But when their lives get busy, they may or may not, we can't require them to do it. And so I saw the same writing problems through the entire course, and a lot of the writing was really appalling. And they would say, oh yeah, my previous teacher said my writing was great. So I think there's real inconsistency with applying the rubric to writing. Is there a way we can require a small APA class up front? Because these online students enter in at different times and they don't have the undergrad work. Can we do a requirement? When I started the MBA, I had to do a one-day seminar on law and marketing and things like that. Can we do that with writing?
Well, that is part of the discussions that we're having with the College of Arts and Sciences and the English department as to how to get a handle on this. Kimberly has been a great support in this also, because often her first course really hits on this APA. APA, what does that stand for? So we're looking at this whole process. So requiring a course means changing the whole degree program. And so that is sort of the last resort, but if we have to go there, we have to go there on writing. Anything else on writing before we go to another topic? Yes, Tom?
I'm wondering about a process of peer review, where the peers review each other's writing with regard to a rubric. I'm wondering if anybody's had any success with that, ideas about that, maybe the writing blocks.
I've had success with that at the traditional level, and then in the adult evening. And partly the success is just building in, writing is a process, and so you need to sort of think about it as a process, and if the courses are designed so that writing isn't considered a process, then that probably is something that may need an assignment redesign. So just even having that a draft is due at a certain time before the actual deadline can be a helpful thing for students. The quality of the peer review tends to be a little bit variable, right? There are things as a faculty person that you can do to help that. You give them models, go through it as a group together, talk about what you would see in a particular sample, and that sort of thing sort of improve the odds. But I do think that having that, even that small piece of feedback and just seeing what somebody else, another student has done with that assignment is a useful thing. So I think that can be useful.
Peer review works when, again, as Autumn said, peer review works when change can be accomplished within the context of the course. So if there's peer review that doesn't lead to opportunity for change and revision and feedback from the faculty member as well, probably is a waste of time.
We've got some more time later in here under the round table where you'll be able to talk as a department, because sometimes writing is a little more sensitive to the department. I'd like to go to the next topic on grade inflation. Deans, talk to us a bit about grade inflation and
For it or against it?
yeah. But I know that this is something you face as deans in your traditional program. Ideally, with some variation because of different client, the average grade for online and adult evening and CPP and traditional should be about the same, and we're not far off. But how do you work with your faculty to try to ensure that the same rigor on grading is working across your whole department, especially since all of you use a lot of adjuncts? Talk about this in a way that will help all of us know that our idea that A is sort of keyed into what your guys' and the rest of the faculty's idea is the A. Wade, talk maybe just a little bit about this. We're getting a little close on time, but this is an important topic also.
Well, I work with the online, of course, and then my traditional faculty and undergraduate and graduate, and then our church partnership program and our off-campus sites. And what we're trying to do is stay all on the same page. And so my faculty, full-time faculty, they're grading at the same level. There's I hope that the inflation isn't happening because they're teaching a different type of a delivery mode. We're trying to do that with just that part, also with our syllabuses, so we're all on the same page. I do teaching in both levels, so that's how I'm grading too. I'm looking at the document, and looking at the information. Is it accurate? Is it up to speed? And then I hope that we're not inflating grades just because we're using a different type of delivery mode. So I want us all on the same page, saying the same thing, grading the same way.
Teresa?
Yeah, just a couple things I've found helpful is to think, first of all, is an A is really exceptional. And it's, I think if you're new at teaching or new at teaching at a particular level, it's sometimes hard to decide, well, what really is an exceptional paper? I know when I first started teaching back in just the paper days, I would just have like 3 piles, you know, like a really good paper, an okay paper, and not so good. And then in each pile, I would try to link them up in order, what's the very best paper, and just to try to help myself decide, you know what, there really is some differences both in content and grammar, how they use the transitions, you know, all those sorts of things. But it was kind of a learning process, I think, for me as the instructor, is can I see differentiations? Because it's not really fair to take a lump of students and say, well, it's all kind of a good paper. And I just want to be nice to these students, and so somebody that's kind of like a B or B minus is also getting an A. I mean, that's where you get grade inflation. So, in my experience, it's usually the new instructors that have a harder time differentiating. And then also, you build this relationship with your students, and you kind of like, I don't want to hurt them. I want to reward them, and so I'll give them an A, but that really doesn't help them, you know.
Right.
And so the other way you can do that, because you feel bad giving somebody, let's say, a B, you know, again, we're in such a inflate, everybody wants to be the best, but to do that with other words of encouragement, and say, boy, I'm giving you a B, boy, you made great improvement, here's what you done better, you know, better, so that the focus isn't so much on the grade. And that's the other challenge I think we have always had with adult evening, perhaps online, but I don't know yet if I've heard much feedback where that students have an expectation coming in, I'm going to be an A student. And some of you maybe have students come to you that say, if you don't increase my grade, I won't come out with a 4.0, and I promised myself I'm going to, you know, and it's like, sorry, you know, that's not what we're here for. So you have to be aware of those challenges and then be able to say, no, I want to, students that's working hard, that's diligent, my experience has been most of the adult evening students, it's okay to give lots of Bs, maybe a couple C pluses, but the A is really exceptional. And if we keep the A as exceptional, I think our standards are gonna, I think we're not gonna have so much grade inflation.
We do not have need-based grading. I need it. We do not have effort-based grading. I put so much work into this, and of course we're saying you should have put a lot more. But we do not have need-based or effort-based. It's content. It's what you produce. Getting an A minus is not that you know, the apocalypse doesn't happen if you give an A minus or a B plus in there. The average is B. B is a good assignment. B is good work. If you start off the semester or the session giving A's, it's hard to go down. But I always tell my students, it gets tougher. I grade tougher as you go through this because you're supposed to be learning something. Find a technique that works with you. But grade inflation is something we need to be very careful about. Daryl, you want to talk just a bit? Anything we've missed? Let me ask that.
We're not Lake Wobegon, all of our children are not above average.
Okay.
I think it's really important. What Teresa said is exactly right. If you're going to err with a B. Nobody ever said, hey, I'm ready to go to graduate school with my B average. but they think they're ready to go to graduate school if they have an A average. If they get to graduate school and can't do the work when they had an A average, when they had an A GPA, we've done them an incredible disservice. The schools that our students apply to, if they get a transcript from Northwest, the student has an A GPA, and so they accept them, and then they can't do the work, we've damaged all of our future students, the reputation of all our future students. So, I mean, it really is a key. If you feel like you need to be generous with Bs, but don't be generous with As, because As really communicate. Really, you're ready to. And our catalog has really nice descriptors. A means this, A minus means this, B plus.
Sometimes at the end of the year, in faculty meetings, kind of the GPA report with the registrar's office and get in.
Yeah, it comes out.
And the average grade is like a 2.8?
No, the average is more like a 3.2.
3.2?
Yeah.
Across the traditional program?
Across the program. We'd love it to be, I just read an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education this week that the single most given grade in American higher education is an A. The median grade in American higher education is an A. So we're fighting along with everybody else. But especially a school like Northwest that's still building our reputation, to communicate clearly through our transcripts what we see the value of the quality of our students is really important to build our truth telling, that we tell the truth about our students to those outside. But and I think if we could get that honestly, we get that 3.2 down to about a 3.0 or 3.1 or somewhere in there, we'd be doing fine. Because really what we hope for is that the average grade would be a B. And,
Look, we've got to go to the next session, especially since this is breaking food there. But the grade inflation is very real, but don't give a B without an explanation. That is the number one feedback, negative feedback to us is a professor gave me a B or a C, and I don't know why. I don't know how to improve. So if you, well, on all your assignments, but especially if you're giving a B or C or D, whatever it is, be sure there's explanation, and I recommend always say, if you have questions, let me know, contact me. I'll be glad to work with you. I know it's a lot of work, but that's what the industry is. Let's thank our panel up here. Thank